I found out I was pregnant when I was 15, so I don't know. I felt, how did I feel? I felt scared. I felt alone a little bit. Didn't want to tell anybody about it.
I was super excited. I was nervous. I was only 20, like I had just turned 20, and I hadn't gotten to college or anything yet, so I was kind of, I guess, you just think about everything and you kind of freak out a little bit, but overall I was just super excited.
Most of my doctor's appointments, I went by myself, so like everything, and that's why like the program's so important to me, for me to do it by myself, because all that other stuff I went through by myself. Like I didn't have nobody.
So I went to my appointments alone for the majority of my pregnancy. My boyfriend, he would go when he could make it, but most of the time he was at work or whatever the case, so then I would just go by myself. But then towards the end, when it became like weekly appointments, we went to those, went all the time together.
So after leaving my mom, I transferred over to my aunt's house, and that was it was okay. Like my aunt's real welcoming. Like anything I need, I know I can call her no matter what it is. But when you have a child, you still want to do everything for her.
I moved out of my dad's into my friend's house, and I stayed with her for my whole pregnancy.
I still wanted us to have our own space and everything like that. Yeah, I'm gonna be all in. I'm gonna be all for her. I'm gonna go hard for her. I'm gonna do everything that I want a parent to do for me.
I feel like it didn't feel real. It seemed real. Like I felt like a mom while I was pregnant, but when I went into labor is when it like really hit me. Like, okay, I'm really about to be a mom now. So I would say I was excited the whole entire time, but once she finally got here, it was completely different, like a whole different kind of excitement. I had her, and then I went and stayed with my boyfriend's mom for like the first 6 weeks. And then after that, I was living with my mom, and I was ready to go back to work, but I didn't have a car, so I feel like that held me back.
One day I was talking to my counselor, and I was just telling her everything I was going through, because we were going through it before, and she started telling me about Stephanie. Steph had told her it was brand new, like units and stuff like that, and how it's more than just like housing and stuff. It's like a program where they can help me with. And I told Sam that from the beginning. I want more than just this. Like I want to talk to somebody. I want help getting me to where I want to be.
What is new beginnings? I think that's a big question. So new beginnings, I think for me, is just this, it kind of evens the playing field for young adults that have had different barriers thrown at them. So like, these young parents who I guess haven't been able to experience or have the same opportunities as somebody else not in the same situation.
So before Yasmin was born, I was living with my mom, who is a meth addict, and kind of grew up, going from house to house. Stayed with my dad for like a year. He was in a successful situation at the time, so my life was actually really good for like a year. And it really showed me, the difference between like life as somebody who has parents versus life as somebody who just doesn't really have any role models or resources or anything. So yeah, when I lived with my mom, it was really stressful and just not comfortable in any way. It wasn't a place for growth or anything like that. We lost power for like a month, and then during that time was when my daughter was created, I guess. Conceived, yes. From there, we lost the house. My mom, we got evicted. She ended up, I don't even know where, going to stay with some friends or something. And I ended up going to live with my brother. I lived with him for like 4 or 5 months, but it was not it was not a comfortable arrangement. My brother's a great guy, but it wasn't a comfortable arrangement at all. I was, dealing with too much for him to deal with, and, him basically having to be my parent and my caretaker wasn't really great for a 20-year-old. I went and stayed with my girlfriend and her family. I moved out of there, started living with my sister, just helped each other get by, you know, and I just knew that I didn't really have any help, and it was basically just me against this terrifying, you know, world, trying to make it a comfortable place for my daughter. I needed to go somewhere, and this was the only place I could really go.
Coming from kind of instability, it's important we at Drumm, we like to make sure that they have those clinical services, because it is a culture shock to come from one culture to a different. And so we like to have the therapist there just to show some consistency and just to help with some coping skills and making sure they are adapting that the way they need to adapt. I also like to brag on our employment here. So when the youth does get here, if they don't have a job, they're able to work on the farm and work on those interpersonal skills. So they're learning to show up on time. This is what it's like to show up on time. Maybe we shouldn't say these things at work. This is how we dress. So different things like that, where you don't think you need to teach these skills, but these are skills that are taught in maybe subtle ways, and then they're able to get other employment and excel that way. So I think it's a cool thing to watch.
Working on the farm it's really fun, for one, and because I love animals, and I've never really been able to be around them a lot because I grew up in the city, and you know, we didn't have the money to go do that stuff. But you know, I always kind of wanted to work on a farm, but obviously it's not what I want to do with my life, but it's still a really fun thing, and it's really cool that as soon as you get into this place, while you're looking for jobs, they have work for you to do that is, you know, has a wide variety. You know, you're learning something new every day on the farm, and you know, you're doing different things. You're not standing in the same spot every day doing the same thing, feeling bored and hopeless. So I think it's really awesome.
Our youth who are coming into the New Beginnings program so many times are coming from a situation that is not stable, where they're staying every night and how they're getting to and from work and medical appointments and the other things that the rest of us are just getting up and doing on a daily basis. So once they are moved in, they're coming to Drumm. One of the first things that we work on together is just identifying those life skills that they want to work on and practice, because they have not had always an ideal situation where those skills are modeled for them in their everyday life as they're growing up through different stages. So we work on life skills. Transportation is a big one. Everybody wants their own car. We all do. So we work on saving money, learning how to budget and work toward that car. Employment is a goal. There are so many educational goals. It's awesome to sit down with them for the first time and listen to them talk about what they want to do and how they got interested in whatever field and what they want to study. So what we're working on together at Drumm is for these young adults to be independent, successful, raising a family outside of Drumm that looks like the everyday life that they want for themselves and for their family.
I really want to go back to school for forensic science, and my goal is to be have a set career by the time that she's going into preschool or first grade. So by the time she's 5, I want to have it all settled by then.
I think the big thing now is just me becoming a CNA. That's all I've been thinking about, all I've been looking into. And Steph actually told me about a university, but I can't start that until I graduate. So that's probably my big plan right now. I work part-time too, so I tried to make time for all 3 of those, because Janabi is always my first priority, but I need an education, I also need money, so it's I don't know, it is, don't get me wrong, it is hard, it really is hard, but I know if that's what I want and that's what I want for Janabi, I know I can do it.
I grew up being really fascinated with biology and history, I like learning about philosophy and stuff like that. I've always known that I had a lot of potential, and I mean, I failed a lot in school, but the 1 year that I lived with my dad, and at that time he was married to a woman who worked at a bank, so she, you know, they were doing really good, and I lived with them for a year. I had my own room and my own space to do my own thing. I ate healthy, you know, I lived a healthier lifestyle. I was taking showers and stuff, and I also had mostly A's and B's in school. I've been drawing my whole life. I've been coming up with stories my whole life, and then on the flip side, I've been into, you know, education my whole life. So where do I see myself in 10 to 30 years? I know that most, you know, games and movies and TV shows, you know, a lot of the really interesting ones started as either some type of novel or they started as a comic book. And, you know, that's something that I've always felt I could do too. And with my child, I see myself teaching her whatever she wants to learn about, you know, whatever she's interested in, I want to become interested in, and I want to help her, you know, reach her potential with that.
First and foremost, I think that my role for each of the individual youth and New Beginnings is to show up for them, be the person consistently, whether it's a good phone call or a good day or a little bit rougher, is someone who is just showing up for them, you know, for the little things and the big things. I also see it as being an extension of their support system, and someone who is introducing them to resources and people and relationships, because I feel lucky that I have a lot of those relationships because of my family and being someone who grew up in this area and in this school district. And that is something that I really hope that I can be the person that connects them to so many of the wonderful people and places and resources that were shared with me as a young parent.
It means a lot to me to be here and be a part of Drumm. It's really a blessing because I've felt like really stuck. Like I didn't know how I was gonna move forward after having a kid and not having like the resources to go to school or like get a job, do daycare. And they've helped like so much with just being a support system, like in every aspect. It's just been great.
I knew my situation was really not a good one, and I knew that I had to get in a position where I could provide as soon as possible, but I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know like how, I know how like you have to work hard and, you know, do this and that, but you know, when you sit down and you try to figure out like government assistance or something, you know, it's not something that's easy to just do by yourself, especially when, you know, at times you don't have a phone or access to internet or anything like that.
There's always something else. There's always a second chance. There's always that. Like, there's plenty of times I wanted to give up, but there's people like Steph and you guys who let me know I do have a second chance and I do have help and I do have somebody I can turn back on. So I feel like it's a family. Like, Steph's always checking up on me, asking me do I need anything. Like, it's more than just, like I said, just the housing and stuff like that.
I think my biggest goal for them is to have some confidence, you know, just walking into this world. And just in this short amount of time that New Beginnings program has started, I've definitely seen these young adults be able to advocate for themselves, set boundaries, ask questions, go to interviews, you know, just kind of take the lead in their own goal planning versus us saying, okay, the next step is X, Y, and Z. They're kind of like, okay, I got that part, now I want to do this, this, and that. So it's amazing to watch them grow in such a short amount of time, and I'm excited to see where they end up.
It's mind-blowing that in the cruel and unfair world we live in, there actually is some people that are willing to give people a chance that would otherwise have no chance in life, you know. because I wouldn't have. You know, if it weren't for wasn't for this route, I probably would have just been another deadbeat dad. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered how much I tried. You know, I can't pull a bunch of money out, and you know, I can't get a place. I can't just get a car. I have to work, and during that time that I'm working, I have to eat. And during all that time, I have to provide for her too. And even if I work hard enough to become successful 2 years from now, you know, where I do have a house, I do have a car, I do have all these resources, the time between now and then would be spent hating myself and thinking that I'm a deadbeat dad, and other people that I know thinking I'm a deadbeat dad. And, you know, her not being able to have me around, you know, that's just something that would have been really bad if not for, you know, these people helping me out. You know, it might save my life. I might be a actual successful person with, you know, achievements and stuff.
I think the most important thing that we're accomplishing at Drumm is building those relationships, the lasting relationships, that those youth can come back even when they're long and gone and they're so successful. They can come back and ask questions, or like you said, celebrate those little wins. So relationships would be the biggest thing.